The scripture reading for today is Matthew 2, 1 through 12. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, Magi came from the east to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star in the east and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the Magi and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child. And when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen in the east, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return by Herod, they left for their own country by another road. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Today is Epiphany. There's a lot of good memories associated with this. It's the day we mark the arrival of the Magi, the wise men, which, unlike Joseph, every little boy in Sunday school wants to be one of the wise men in the nativity play. It's one of those times we get to put on fake beards, probably fake beards that actually look like my real beard now. We get to wear crowns, we get to carry fancy gifts, and unfortunately you can also kind of start a fight. I remember when I was a kid, because clearly we knew the wise men were from the east, so they had to be some sort of martial arts experts. So I remember Dave Varnon saying that they're clearly Korean and knew Taekwondo. Now, of course, as a kid who had studied karate, because the Karate Kid was like the best thing in the 1980s, I was certain that one of the wise men was Japanese and knew karate. And then, we had kind of the weird friend who thought that they were Chinese and knew kung fu, and then we tried to settle it in the church hall, which is probably not what everybody expected, but, you get kind of elementary kids all together, and you get events like that. But nothing will stop our celebration of Epiphany today, because it is also a beloved Sunday on our Christian calendar. This feast day also has plenty of misconceptions, and we've had these for a while. In fact, it was a problem about 500 years ago that Martin Luther even tried to get rid of Epiphany altogether. He was not happy that everybody was talking about three kings when they were clearly just wise men. He would have been madder when years later they kind of captured our popular, or at least Christian culture, that we gave them names like Caspar, Melchior, and Balthazar. Nobody really uses those names. I think they were just of that era. But the Bible does not name the Magi, nor does it give the number of Magi, just what gifts they gave. And in this text, there are also no camels either, so it is not Hump Day unless January 6th, Epiphany actually falls on a Wednesday, which it does not this year. It's this Tuesday. But there is also no proof that the Magi did not ride camels on their great long trip. But we do know that they bring gifts. And speaking of gifts, it was about 10 years ago when I was at a conference when I encountered something in kind of church popular culture. Some of the more crafty people from a church in the Chicago, Illinois area decided they would give inspirational gifts, but on a budget. And it came when some of them were looking at the story of the Magi. And it wasn't much of a jump a few years later that people were giving star gifts, or sometimes called star words, for Epiphany. And I have some back there. There'll be some in the plate, and you can grab some of those. But these star gifts were kind of a thing that we can kind of celebrate, or it can be kind of a prayer starter. It's just a simple star. It has a word. If you don't like the word on it, thankfully you can turn it over and write your own word there too. There's some options. And what's really fun is these can be kind of prayer starters. Like Mary, we can ponder these words in our heart all year. We can put them on our refrigerator. We can place them in the car. We can put them next to our computer screen. We can put them on our dresser or bathroom mirror, anywhere that you will see them, and it can become kind of the simplest prayer starter all year round. But taking back a little more serious look at this story, we should also notice this story has a particular environment. It is one of fear, it involves deception, and it involves darkness. Usually we will clean this story up. We have a star, we have wise men, we have camels, we have gifts. But there is also a more foreboding nature to this story. One that probably our ancient listeners who were ruled by greedy governors, by corrupt Caesars, or licentious leaders, knew all too well that the sin of those in high places, the sin of those who have absolute power, can impact our lives. And what we see here, and was what a very motivating factor, is we see fear in King Herod. Now, Herod is a client king. The Romans sometimes would rule through petty kings so that the populace would blame the house of Herod rather than blame Rome itself. It is also easier to rule when the populace is at war with itself. This is kind of the idea of divide and conquer. And so Herod, therefore, he is concerned to hear that the Magi have come to worship a newborn king. And this makes Herod afraid. He starts to think, well, is Rome going to supplant him? Is there going to be a popular uprising? Are his days numbered? Now, this is also kind of a theme sometimes we see in the Bible. Israel's first king, Saul, came to power as an adult. His successor, King David, was anointed as a young boy and was a member of Saul's court before he became fully king. So Herod has kind of this tradition. He knows what happens in his own time. He knows what happens amongst the people. And so there is always kind of another king waiting in the wings. And so the king is afraid. And so the whole city of Jerusalem is as well. The people start to wonder, are there going to be roundups? Will our neighbors turn on us? What evil is on the horizon? Anything could happen, and Jerusalem holds its breath, waiting for King Herod's second response. And this is where we have a grand deception. King Herod tricks the Magi, who are astronomers and not politicians, and they will serve as useful idiots to unmask this threat to the rule of King Herod. So he gives them kind of the pointer to go to Bethlehem. That's where kings are supposed to come from. And so he sends them along to Bethlehem, and he assured the Magi to report back to him the location of this new king. He meant to say star, but he said king. And perhaps Herod planned to shower these people with research grants. Perhaps he would give them tenure at the academy or positions as his church astrologers. You know, they didn't have newspapers back then where you could look and see what things were going for Aquariuses or Pisces or whatever, so maybe he was going to give them that job. And this plan should work. His plans have worked so far on the chief priests and the scribes of the people. They kind of are dancing to the tune that he is playing. So he sends these magi, these eastern rubes, to do his secret bidding. And the magi, they do go to Bethlehem. And the star stops above the Holy Family, or at least the house where they were. And they give the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Now, if this was a full-fledged stewardship message, we would go into great detail about each one and giving of gifts. Yet the Magi's gifts today, we'll talk about how they kind of fit the offices of Christ. One of the roles of Christ is as king. And gold is technically given as tribute to the king. Jesus famously said when he was given a coin that was Caesar, render is Caesar's to Caesar, render to God what is God. The second gift, frankincense, is burned. It is associated with kind of a fragrance. It is used as incense, and it is associated with priests as they lift up offerings, as they lift up prayers in the places of worship, in this case, the temple. So when the Magi give Jesus the frankincense, they expect him to use it. Myrrh is associated with healing of the sick, and it is also used for cleaning or preparing bodies for burial. This reminds us kind of the prophetic traditions. The prophets worked wonders healing the sick, even resurrecting the widow's son, and preaching of the day of the Lord that is to come. Jesus Christ will fulfill the role of prophet, of priest, and king. Now, in these last verses, we see how the dark designs of human rulers are thwarted. God warns these wise men in a dream. In the Gospel of Matthew, we always see God talking to people in dreams, and they will simply leave by another road. But we are left in this coldest time of year wondering, what do we do about darkness in our world? Often we need to pay attention to God. We need to pay attention to God's word. We need to pay attention to how God is speaking to us, whether that is through our dreams or through the actions or the people we encounter. In Matthew's gospel, the angel speaks in dreams. And we might ask ourselves, where is God speaking to us in our day and age? Perhaps it is in prayer. Perhaps it speaks to us, the star word that we get today. Maybe God speaks to us in service, and we need to figure out a new way in which we can serve God this new year. Many are assessing if God is speaking to us in our work and labor, and we see kind of where we need to serve God in our vocation. We need to see where God is working through us to help other people in our everyday life. And this is also a good time to plan. Like I said, the first 2 weeks in this new year is a good time to reminisce about the past, whether you got in a fight in Sunday school some 30 years ago, or if it is a time where you need to discern where life is leading us. We need to ask ourselves what light is guiding us. Where are we going in life? Who's counseling us on our journey? Do those people who are counseling us, or do they have ulterior motives like Herod? Or are they just pointing us in the right direction? And we can rest assured in this time that God is with us. In these cold and dark days, we are also aware of what we face in this season. And we can also look to hope as we move forward in this future, that God is indeed with us. But until we know fully, until we know our plans, we can plan and we can be as gentle as doves and we can be wise as serpents. Many of us have a better understanding of power and fear that originates in this story, and we have to face the same thing as well. We are wise to the motives of others, and we can see what is happening. But we also have to hope that we will have a star, or at least a guiding light, to follow. And that we know that in times of trouble, that sometimes we can leave by a different road. And that we can travel the path that God would have us be on. If God blesses us with wisdom, we listen to the warnings of our hearts and dreams, we can once again be on the road that God has prepared for us. And we know that God prepares and guards us in times of trouble and shows us the light of where we are to go. So in this time, in this season, as we get ready to share this sacrament, let us come to know God better, and let us prepare that God will be with us.